Hey there, nonprofit ninjas. Welcome to Capitalization 101. Nonprofit edition, keeping it real. I'm your host, Anthony. Let's be honest, talking about money isn't always the most exciting thing, especially in the nonprofit world. But here's the thing. You can't save the world if you're constantly broke. It's like trying to fight a dragon with a pool noodle. You're going to have a bad time. Now, I know what you're thinking. But Anthony, we're nonprofits. We're not supposed to be rolling in dough. And you're right, you're not. But that doesn't mean you have to be financially inept. In fact, being financially savvy is crucial to achieving your mission. Think of it like this. Money is the fuel that keeps your nonprofit engine running. So let's talk about capitalization. Sounds scary, right? Like something only accountants and financial wizards understand. But trust me, it's not as complicated as it sounds. In a nutshell, capitalization is all about how your nonprofit is structured financially. It's about the assets you have, the liabilities you owe, and the net assets you're left with. Think of it as your organization's financial DNA. Now, just like everyone's DNA is unique, so is every nonprofit's capitalization. There's no one-size-fits-all approach here. The ideal financial structure for your organization depends on a whole bunch of factors, like your programs, your size, and your long-term goals. It's like finding the perfect pair of jeans. What fits one person might not fit another. Okay, Anthony, you say, you've successfully convinced me that capitalization is important. But why should I care? I'm just a humble program manager / volunteer, coordinator / grant writer / insert your role here. Well, my friend, understanding capitalization is about more than just balancing the books. It's about ensuring the long-term sustainability and impact of your organization. When your nonprofit is well capitalized, it means you have the financial resources to weather unexpected storms, seize new opportunities, and ultimately make a bigger difference in the world. You're not constantly scrambling for funding. You can invest in your staff and infrastructure, and you have the flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances. In short, good capitalization empowers you to focus on what really matters, your mission.
All right, folks. Let's talk about the first goal of good capitalization: liquidity. Liquidity is all about having enough cash on hand to cover your day-to-day expenses. You know, the boring but essential stuff like paying your staff, rent, and that monthly subscription to cat videos. Liquidity is like having water stations along the way. You need those regular sips of H2O to stay hydrated and keep going. Without enough liquidity, you won't be able to keep the lights on, let alone make a difference in the world. Next up on our capitalization hit parade is adaptability. It's all about being nimble, flexible, and ready to pivot like a boss. The world is a crazy, unpredictable place. One minute you're planning a gala, the next you're running programs virtually. Good capitalization means adapting without throwing your organization into a tailspin. It's also about seizing new opportunities when they arise. With good capitalization, you'll be in a position to say, heck yeah, and go for it.
Last but not least, we have durability, the final pillar in our capitalization trifecta. This one's all about playing the long game, folks. We're talking legacy here, not some flimsy house of cards that collapses with the slightest breeze. Durability is about having a solid financial foundation that can support your organization's growth and impact over time. Because trust me, those rainy days will come.
All right, folks, it's time to talk about the birds and the bees of nonprofit finance, that is. And by that, I mean operating revenue and capital. This is the bread and butter of your nonprofit, the moolah that keeps the lights on and the programs running. We're talking about those sweet, sweet donations, grants, and maybe even a little earned income if you're feeling entrepreneurial. Think of it like the circle of life. You do good work, people give you money, you use that money to do more good work. Now, let's talk about capital, the often misunderstood cousin of operating revenue. Unlike its more free-flowing relative, capital is all about the long game. It's the money you set aside for big picture stuff, like buying a building, investing in new technology, or starting an endowment. Remember those? Think of capital as your non-profit savings account. It's the money you squirrel away for a rainy day, or, a global pandemic. It's the reserves you build up to ensure your organization's long-term sustainability and growth. Now, here's where things get a little tricky. Building capital takes time and discipline. It's not like winning the lottery, although if you do, please give us a call. It's about consistently setting aside a portion of your revenue, even when it's tempting to spend it all on immediate needs. So we've got operating revenue, the reliable friend who keeps the lights on, and capital, the long-term savings account for a rainy day. Think of it like the story of the tortoise and the hare. Operating revenue is the hair-quick, nimble, and essential for day-to-day operations. That's where capital comes in. The tortoise of the non-profit finance world. Slow and steady wins the race, remember?
All right, folks, let's talk about special purpose funds. Now, I know what you're thinking. Anthony, please, no more financial jargon. Special purpose funds are like the label maker of non-profit finance. They help you organize your money and keep track of where it's going. They allow you to earmark money for specific purposes. Seriously, folks, get yourself a rainy day fund. Now, let's talk about the Beyoncé of special purpose funds. Working capital. This is the queen bee, the head honcho, the money that keeps your non-profit's lights on and the programs running. We're talking about the cash you need to cover your day-to-day expenses like payroll, rent, and that monthly subscription to cat videos that you keep meaning to cancel. Don't worry, we all have our guilty pleasures. Think of working capital as your non-profit's emergency credit card. It's there for those unexpected expenses that pop up out of nowhere, like a broken toilet. We've all been there. Or a sudden surge in demand for your services. Without enough working capital, you'll be stuck scrambling to make ends meet, and nobody wants to be that person who's constantly hitting up their friends for loans, or worse, racking up credit card debt. Now here's the thing about working capital. It's not sexy. It's not going to win you any awards or get your name in the paper. But trust me, having enough working capital is the difference between a smooth-running operation and a chaotic mess. Section 3. The Fund Family, a guide to your financial entourage. Working capital, the queen bee of special purpose funds. But what about the rest of the gang? Your special purpose funds come in all shapes and sizes. Let's meet the family. The Facilities Fund, maintaining and improving your physical assets. The Program Fund, supporting your core programs and services. The Endowment Fund, generating investment income for the long term.
Section 4. Choosing your funds. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. How do I know which special purpose funds are right for my organization? There's no one-size-fits-all answer. Take a good look at your organization's specific needs, goals, and risk tolerance. It's like choosing a new pair of shoes. What fits one person might not fit another. So how do you go about choosing your funds? Here are a few questions to get you started. What are your organization's biggest financial priorities? Are you constantly struggling to make payroll? Do you have a long list of building repairs? Are you hoping to launch a new program? Your answers will help you identify essential funds. Building capital. It's like growing a money tree, but with less fertilizer. How do you actually build capital? Sadly, there's no magical money tree involved. It takes time, discipline, and financial savvy. Remember our chat about working capital? That's your financial bedrock. Ensure enough working capital to keep the lights on. You wouldn't build a house on sand, right? Unless you're into that whole sinking into the earth aesthetic. Once you've got enough working capital, build your special purpose funds. This is where things get fun. It's about making strategic decisions for long-term goals. Now, I know what you're thinking. Anthony, how do I know if I have enough working capital? Is there some kind of magical formula I can use? And you know what? There is. Sort of. It's called the quick ratio, and while it might not be as cool as the bat signal, it's still a pretty handy tool for assessing your organization's financial health. Don't worry, you don't need to be a math whiz to understand this. The quick ratio is simply a measure of your organization's ability to pay its short-term liabilities, those pesky bills that keep showing up in your mailbox, with its most liquid assets, cash, cash equivalents, and those delicious marketable securities. Think of it like this. Imagine you're at a buffet, because who doesn't love a good buffet? The quick ratio is like assessing how much food you can comfortably eat right now versus how much you'll need to pack away in Tupperware for later. Don't judge, we've all been there. Prioritizing your funds. It's like choosing your favorite child, but with less guilt. If you're short on capital, don't worry, it happens. The next step is to prioritize your funds. Remember, working capital is your top priority. Ensure you have enough cash for day-to-day expenses. Once that's covered, think about your other funds. Your priorities depend on your mission and goals.
Section 4. Don't forget about the future. It's closer than you think. While it's important to address your organization's immediate needs, don't forget about the future, because believe me, it sneaks up on you faster than you think. Building capital isn't just about putting out fires today, it's about creating a sustainable future for your organization. That means thinking about things like long-term investments, endowment building, and creating a reserve fund for unexpected challenges. Because let's face it, the world is a crazy, unpredictable place. Remember, building capital is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time, discipline, and a healthy dose of patience. But trust me, the rewards are well worth the effort. Section 1. Miscapitalization. When your finances go haywire and how to avoid it. All right, folks, it's time to talk about the dark side of nonprofit finance miscapitalization. Don't worry, it's not as scary as it sounds unless you're a fan of well-balanced budgets, in which case, look away. Miscapitalization is basically what happens when your nonprofit's financial structure goes haywire, like a game of Jenga played by a caffeine-fueled squirrel. Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to build a house on a foundation of marshmallows. Because why not? Sure, it might look impressive for about 5 minutes, but as soon as the wind picks up, or someone leans on it the wrong way, the whole thing is going down. Miscapitalization is kind of like that. It's what happens when your nonprofit doesn't have the right balance of resources to support its programs, infrastructure, and long-term goals. It's like trying to run a marathon with a sprained ankle and a fanny pack full of loose change. You might make it to the finish line, but it's not going to be pretty. Section 2. The Misfit Toys of Nonprofit Finance. Tales of miscapitalization gone wrong. Now, I know what you're thinking. Anthony, this all sounds very abstract. Can you give us some real-world examples of miscapitalization in action? You bet your bottom dollar I can. Let's meet the misfit toys of nonprofit finance, shall we? The overzealous expander. This is the nonprofit that's always chasing the next big grant, expanding its programs and staff without first ensuring it has the infrastructure and resources to support them. Think of it like throwing a party for 200 people in your tiny studio apartment. Sure, it might be fun for a hot minute, but good luck getting everyone out alive, or at least without stepping on someone's cat. The facility hoarder. This is the nonprofit that's sitting on a mountain of real estate, multiple buildings, acres of land, maybe even a moat. Hey, we don't judge, but here's the catch. They don't have the funds to maintain it all, let alone use it effectively. It's like that friend who collects vintage Beanie Babies, but keeps them all stuffed in their parents' basement. What's the point if you can't even look at them? That's the endowment obsessed. This is the nonprofit that's so focused on building its endowment, remember that wise old sage, that it neglects its current operating needs. It's like saving for retirement but forgetting to pay your rent. Sure, you'll have a nice nest egg someday, but you might be living under a bridge until then. Section 3. The warning signs. How to spot miscapitalization before it's too late. Now, I know what you're thinking, Anthony, this all sounds terrifying. How can I tell if my organization is headed for a miscapitalization disaster? Don't worry, my friend. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Here are a few warning signs to watch out for. Are you constantly scrambling to make payroll? Are you delaying payments to vendors and hoping they don't notice? Are you having nightmares about bounced checks? These are all signs that your working capital might be running a little low. Is your organization consistently operating at a deficit? Are you relying on one-time grants or donations to cover your operating expenses? These are red flags that your financial model might not be sustainable in the long term. Are you putting off essential building repairs because you don't have the funds? Are you using duct tape and a prayer to hold your office equipment together? Deferred maintenance is a slippery slope, my friend, and it can lead to bigger, more expensive problems down the line. Tips and tricks for staying on track. Identify warning signs. Miscapitalization isn't irreversible. Here are a few tips. Create a realistic budget. Track expenses like a hawk. Cut costs without sacrificing quality. Diversify income sources. Be patient and make tough decisions. Slow and steady wins the race. Section 1. Capitalization. It's not just a buzzword, it's your secret weapon. So there you have it, nonprofit ninjas. We've journeyed through the wild and wacky world of capitalization, from the importance of working capital, your financial wingman, to the perils of miscapitalization, the financial equivalent of a wardrobe malfunction. But most importantly, we've learned that good capitalization isn't just about crunching numbers and balancing budgets, though those are definitely important. It's about empowering your organization to achieve its mission, make a real difference in the world, and maybe even have a little fun along the way, because who says nonprofit work has to be all doom and gloom? Think of capitalization as your secret weapon, your financial superpower. When your organization is well capitalized, you have the freedom to say yes to new opportunities, weather unexpected storms, and invest in the long-term sustainability of your work. You're no longer living paycheck to paycheck, or should I say grant to grant, constantly worrying about keeping the lights on. Instead, you're free to focus on what really matters, your mission, your community, and maybe even sneaking in a few cat videos during your lunch break. Because hey, we've all got to have our vices. Section 2, go forth and capitalize responsibly, of course. Capitalization is a journey, not a destination. Make conscious, strategic decisions every step of the way. Diversify your funding sources and build a rainy day fund. Go forth, nonprofit ninjas, and capitalize responsibly.